Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 26th day of September in the year of our Lord 2025. I will continue talking today and analyzing the murder of Charlie Kirk, especially the aftermath, including his memorial service. Was this event of such magnitude that it could be called a Fort Sumter level tectonic separation of opposing forces? I only know that the official explanation of the murder is not truthful because it simply could not happen that way. Since the assassination of President Kennedy, this has been an assassination nation with so many it would be impossible to list them all in this report. Wikipedia has a 12,000 word article, and even that doesn't include them all. We all remember the three big ones: JFK, RFK, and MLK, but there are literally dozens more of lesser significance. Very few rise to the level of professionalism that the murder of Charlie exhibited. Most killings or attempted killings were done with a handgun from close range. Even the attempt on Donald Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania was done rather clumsily and would not have been possible without the incompetence of the Secret Service. Charlie's murder, on the other hand, was very professional, similar to JFK's assassination in that it was apparently done from long range with a scoped rifle and only one shot to a lethal area of his body. That shot was planned and carried out by a lone nut who was 22 years old, living with his trans lover, who had little to no experience in long-range shooting, especially with that old rifle. There are so many inconsistencies in the official explanation that it's hard to keep up with them. I've seen interviews with military, i.e. Navy SEAL snipers, who say that shot under this circumstances was impossible. I've seen videos attempting to prove that he was shot from close range with a small caliber handgun. Apparently, the medical examiner's preliminary report said there was no exit wound, which, if true, would be impossible with a .30-06 caliber rifle from 200 yards. That bullet would tear through human flesh like a knife through butter from that range. That's not speculation, folks. It's a fact. I hate to be gruesome about it, but a .30-06 round would have blown his head apart. So there was an exit wound, or not, because if not, then the official story is a lie. The whole thing is a lie and a fabrication. I am totally convinced of that. The official narratives of many stories include impossibilities that we are expected to believe. For example, the way Building 7 came down blocks from the World Trade Center in its own foundation footprint. We're told it was weakened by the towers collapsed and fell, an obvious impossibility, told without any embarrassment. In Charlie's case, there are many flaws, and even the long-range rifle story, that as yet have no explanation. The video shows the shooter on the roof he used as a firing platform. He then got up and ran without a rifle, apparently, until he reached the edge of the roof, where he climbed over and dropped down again without his rifle. He then ran off into the woods, where he left his fully assembled rifle with the spent cartridge still in the chamber. In other words, he didn't cycle the bolt to chamber another round in case he had to fire again to kill his target or to defend himself. The explanation for his running without his rifle, then it appearing in the woods, is that he disassembled it at the scene, put the barrel in his pants so it would not be visible. So he took the time to do that at the murder scene. Then he ran with a rifle barrel in his pants and climbed down from a high roof, went into the woods, reassembled the rifle, wrapped it in cloth, and left it there. He was only there seconds after the shot. Trained experts take about 1 minute to disassemble that rifle. Those are people who do it for a living, folks. Virtually none of that story is believable. Much of it is impossible. But that is what we're supposed to believe. When we question the official explanation, they call us conspiracy theorists. But couldn't they at least show us the respect of coming up with a lie that is at least possible instead of one that is impossible? So if the official explanation is impossible, then what happened? If I knew the answer to that, I would probably be working somewhere else right now. But let's look at some of the events leading up to the murder. Charlie had apparently been receiving credible death threats, which led him to employ, excuse me, folks, a layered security team to protect him from lethal events. Normally, unless the target is a high-profile politician protected by the Secret Service. The threats will come from close range, so I guess that's what his team expected. In other words, they didn't expect a professionally executed political assassination, but that's what they got. The murder, then, is probably one of the most professionally executed political assassinations since JFK. Hindsight is 20/20, of course, but no roof surveillance. No roof surveillance. No drones. That's negligent by any security team. Charlie had always been an absolutely committed supporter of Israel and its Zionist projects throughout the Middle East, or at least that's what I thought. He had apparently been undergoing a change of heart. He was growing into a much bigger problem for the supporters of Israel than anyone knew. Tucker Carlson spoke at one of Charlie's events and gave a very courageous speech in which he laid out much of the problems involved in the relationship between the U.S. and Israel. Tucker, who apparently pointed out his topic in advance to Charlie, pointed out that if Americans understood that their elected officials at each branch of government are being systematically blackmailed, bought off by a ruthless foreign government, they would most likely be outraged and demand change. A few members of Congress, including the Muslim members, but also Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has been one of Trump's most ardent supporters, voted to cut funding to Israel. Perhaps they realized that Israel was using the money they gave it to buy and blackmail the U.S. government. I don't want to sound overly harsh toward Israel, especially since I have no way of knowing for sure, except what others say and write, but some things are self-evident and not speculation. For one thing, if what I said in the preceding few sentences is true, that's very bad indeed, and something should and must be done to free the U.S. from the grip of its lost and corrupt politicians. There is another side to the story, and that is that it would be fair to say that Israel is an assassination nation apart from ours. In other words, they do the assassinating. Just pick up a copy of Ronan Bergman's very authoritative book entitled Rise and Kill First. That book explains that Israel's foreign policy is and always has been assassination of its perceived enemies. Israel seems to have the mindset that if anyone in the world threatens its intentions, that person will be killed. In fact, as Ron Unz pointed out about the revelations of the book, Israel's body count probably exceeds all the other nations of the world combined. With the attacks against Iran, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Lebanon, to name just a few, the assassination nation seems to have put the tactic into overdrive recently. From reading comments made by Charlie's inner circle, there appears to be a belief held by most, if not all, that Israel killed him, just as it killed so many other threats. Charlie was changing. That much is indisputable right now. He was taken to a meeting on Long Island at the estate of billionaire Israeli supporter Bill Ackman. The purpose of the meeting, according to people who were also there, was to rein Charlie in or make a last-ditch effort to keep him in the Israeli camp. People around the world in a very key demographic were starting to listen to Charlie's message, so he needed to be silenced. Charlie reportedly refused their offers, even resented the intimidation and the threats. This view of who killed Charlie may or may not be correct, but it is apparently widely held by those who worked with him. According to Ron Unz, even several Trump administration members suspect that Israel killed him. Can you imagine continuing to fund such a nation if you thought it killed Charlie Kirk? Because I can't imagine doing that. Charlie was a young man going in harm's way with regard to his changing view of Israel, previously one of his biggest supporters. I guess it goes something like this, folks. We will support you and your organization with large sums of money if you continue to say nice things about us and our efforts in Gaza, but if you don't, then all bets are off. Oh, and by the way, we're going to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund you and your organization, just as we use it to blackmail and purchase U.S. elected officials and surrounding bureaucrats. What you can't do, Charlie, is use the money we give you to lead or encourage all those under 30 Christian MAGA soldiers away from our cause, because we need them as cannon fodder to fight our wars. See, Charlie, our goal is to become the dominant power in the Middle East while expanding the physical borders of Israel. We can't do that while Iran, with all those hypersonic missiles and its new state-of-the-art Russian anti-air defense integrated network system, while that nation still exists, we cannot destroy Iran by ourselves, and we are going to need your audience to go into Iran and do it for us. So walk softly, Charlie, tread lightly, because as the drug cartels say to the Mexican politicians, you can have the gold or you can have the lead. Which do you choose? Apparently, folks, Charlie chose the lead, which does indeed make him a Christian martyr, in my mind at least, because he died for the faith he held. His honor would not let him take the money anymore. That makes Charlie one of the most honorable men of this age. The outpouring of support from literally hundreds of thousands at his memorial service reflects that sentiment. I'm told that 100 million people watched the service on TV worldwide. I can't overstate how significant that is, folks. Hundreds of thousands in the arena, in an adjoining arena, standing outside in the Arizona heat. I watched it, and I personally thought it was maybe the greatest event I have seen on TV in my lifetime. I will also point out that my lifetime encompasses the entire existence of television. The event was a five-hour-long combination of old-fashioned gospel revival meeting held with almost everyone who is anyone in each branch of government today. Very rarely do the president and the vice president appear in public at the same time and at the same event for obvious reasons. Of course, Charlie's widow stole the show with her public forgiveness of her husband's murderer. Whether she forgave the right person or is another question for another day. But Trump's kindness to her was very touching and obviously from the heart. Finally, folks, I don't know who killed Charlie. I don't know that. But I do know the official explanation is impossible. It could not have happened that way. The tens of thousands who cheered Charlie's death are very sad, misinformed people. The genie's out of the bottle, folks. The toothpaste is out of the tube, however you want to say it. But people are starting to see what is happening to this country. More and more outrage is building. I'm afraid the ships are on their way to Fort Sumter as I speak, folks. At least that's the way I see it. Until next time, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.